Hey everybody, so continuing with the I Am Talking series, where kind of the idea is that enlightenment is a good thing. Enlightenment means being aware of awareness, or being aware of beingness, or being aware that I'm existing. And the idea is that talking about this opens me up to it, right? So this is not supposed to be a teaching or a necessarily entertainment, even though you can use it as such, but it's like the idea is like just for me to talk about it and therefore invite it in more. And this idea that this might work got also reinforced by Bentinho. He brings out a new book, or he brought out a new book, or the first part of a book, and I only read part of the introduction so far, but he kind of says it's good to journal along with the book, because the journaling itself kind of opens you up more to understanding it, having it in your life kind of. And so I think making like videos about the AM serves kind of the same purpose. And I mean, kind of rewatching the videos and then reading the comments already introduced in me the idea that I'm now this guy making these videos, and I can make it well, or I can make it bad, or I can be perceived well, or I can be perceived badly, or I can have a good video, like a good day of making a video, or a bad day. But this actually can't really be true, because like during having a bad day I'm being, and during having a good day I'm being. It's the same thing. Like, how can I know that I'm having a bad day? It's because I'm aware of it, right? And so it's basically irrelevant if I'm having a good day or bad day. Maybe it's even better if I'm having a bad day, because the suggestion is that if something is bad, that means that I have to pay attention to it, right? And I can't pay attention to the I am during that moment. I have to understand the problem and then solve the problem, or at least bypass the problem, or get over the problem, right? But the idea of I amness is like tuning into I amness. So then, so then I'm not trying to figure it out at that moment, right? I'm trying to see that I'm aware. And so an idea that I had, which is, I'm not claiming that it's ultimately true or that it's even relatively true, but it's just an idea that I felt like if I talk about it, it excites me, and I like to just share the idea. And so the idea is that all excitement is actually excitement about being aware. Like, you can't, like, for example, what are people like excited about? It's, I think, mostly like new and fresh. New and fresh is very exciting. like a new car is exciting, or new house, new clothes, right? They are new and fresh. And what I'm really excited about is like a new and fresh take on something, or a new and fresh perspective on something, or new and fresh information, right? So new and fresh, right? So what is new and fresh actually? So my idea is that it's ultimately about beingness. It's ultimately about like you getting excited that you become more aware of the I am, right? So new and fresh is basically the idea that you don't repeat an old way of not being aware of the I am, or an old way of thinking. You introduce to yourself a new way of not being aware of the I am, a new way of thinking, which is ultimately brings up the hope that you're closer to the I am, right? So I think a new car is kind of a permission slip to be more aware of awareness, ultimately. I mean, there can also be like mixed in the idea that a new car can be a greater distraction to the I am, which is like an excitement for the gremlin, right? So I just had this idea that all roads lead to Rome. All life is being unaware of beingness, because that ultimately leads to being aware of beingness. Or like, what is the common denominator, right? What is like on what ground is the whole play being played, right? So I think just the play in itself is there to exhaust itself, to collapse into beingness. So even the story or the play of being excited about a new car, or new clothes, or new spouse is ultimately there to dissolve, you know, and what was there before, during, and after. It's like awareness, it's beingness. I mean, I always have to put the disclaimer that even awareness is, like, even prior to awareness, there's the ultimate reality, or whatever, but I'm not really talking about that, because that is, to me, a mystery, and I don't know about it much, but I have a sense of awareness, I have a sense of beingness. And I first wanna let that spread in my life, and then maybe go beyond it. But I don't think, like Bentinho says even in his new book, that, like, let's say, like, we look up to the stars and we say, see the moon and the stars, right? The moon is beingness, the stars is the ultimate creator, or ultimate reality, right? Which is even beyond beingness. So kind of pointing up to the moon, it's the same direction as the stars, right? So if I'm pointing up to the moon, which is being aware of awareness, it's the same direction as pointing to the creator, to the infinite reality that is beyond beingness, right? So I think it's just good to focus on beingness, and then we already move and look in the right direction when we ultimately want to realize ultimate reality, right? So I think beingness, awareness of beingness and awareness is all we need to focus on right now. And what I want to talk about is like in his book, Bentinho gives a disclaimer. I think it's called Why You May Not Want to Read This Book. And then he describes different ways in which people resist the awareness of beingness, or the awareness of awareness, or quote-unquote enlightenment, right? And all of the points he brought up in this disclaimer were totally true for me, right? So I realized that I actually have a lot of resistance against enlightenment, and I have a lot of reasons why not to become enlightened. And I think it's cool to talk about that, because it might soften the resistance, and it might give us a hint to where we're headed, or what this is all about, right? And how the game is being played. And he also says like we should take time, like we should take it slow. Maybe we don't want to read this book, or aka tune into enlightenment, or we want to read it more casually, right? And that was a very curious advice from him for me, because if we do that, then we are already acknowledging that we have a huge ego and we have a lot of resistance, and that awareness is already aware of it all, but we are not ready to accept that we are aware of it all. But we kind of accept it already because we want to take our time, because we realize how much resistance we have, right? So it's kind of a weird thing. It's like, take your time being distracted from awareness. Take your time from all the benefits that enlightenment brings. Suffer more. You need time to suffer more. You need time in the illusion. You need time to distract yourself. Like, but why? You know, I think it's good advice from him, but it's like, it made me very curious. Like, why would I want to do that? Right? It's like, I don't know, maybe a stupid example, but let's say I'm in a cold water and I'm freezing, which is the illusion, right? And then the awareness of awareness is like the warm room besides the bathroom, right? So I can get out of the cold water and go into the warm room, but I'm not accustomed to the warm room yet. I'm not. The warmth makes me kind of scared. So his advice is to stay longer in the cold water. I mean, that's how I read it a little bit, right? So but it might be more true that the illusion is the warm room, and the I amness is the cold water. But on the other hand, like, being aware of awareness feels so good. I mean, it's freedom, right? It's the awareness that nothing ever happened, that nothing bad ever happened, right? That there are no problems. So why would I kind of postpone that? That kind of shows how invested I am in the illusion. How I'm like, I built this whole machine of staying in the illusion. I built this whole infrastructure to grasp onto the illusion and not realize that I'm aware of it. And not realize that I'm infinite, right? I mean, I want to try to not use so grandiose words, right? Because if I use grandiose words like I am God, I am infinite, which is basically the same thing as I am aware, right? Or I'm aware that I'm aware. It's same, points to the same thing, but it sounds grandiose, and then the mind thinks, well, that is too big for me. I mean, I can meditate a little bit, but I'm not ready to acknowledge that I'm God or that I'm infinite. That sounds like bragging, like spiritual bragging, right? So I try to use more like down to earth words also for myself, because if I say I'm an infinite creator, then it's like almost like I'm comparatively better than everybody else, kind of, right? Who claims that they are not the creator, but they are a Hollywood star or a super powerful person or whatever, right? But if I go and say, well, you might be a billionaire, but I am the infinite creator, then it's like winning against you, right? So I don't want to do that, but on the other hand, it's like kind of true, right? Because if I'm outside of space-time and if I'm basically infinite, and then, well, yeah, and I also think it's like it's very cool to then go, I have a lot of resistance, I have a lot of reasons to not tune into the I am, but I'm gonna do it anyways, right? For example, let's say I have 3 or 4 problems at the same time, or urgent matters at the same time, and the idea that one or more of these urgent matters don't get taken care of makes me think of kind of scenarios that are very unpleasant, right? So I'm living in this kind of panic mode, or urgent doomsday mode, or just the idea of kind of preventing doom or preventing calamities or something along those lines, right? So then it's kind of a strong suggestion not to tune into the I am, because it wastes time that I need to solve the problem, and it also minimizes the problem. It's almost like I'm not taking it seriously, right? Which is kind of, I'm almost laughing at the people who suffer from it, right? Or who might suffer from it, right? So if I have problems that or urgent matters, and if I don't take care of it, then my cat might not have enough food, or my girlfriend might get mad at me, or whatever, right? So it's like if I at that moment am aware of awareness, it's almost like I'm not taking my cat or another person seriously enough, right? So there's a big case being built against tuning into awareness, tuning into beingness, and then still going, I'm gonna tune into it, right? I think that is awesome. And then when people describe it with the best of intentions, and they might even be on the right track, but I'm just gonna say what I think about it. When they describe it, they say stuff like, well, you need infinite trust in yourself and in God. You need extreme amounts of bravery. You need to jump off a cliff, right? And so these words, even though they're kind of true, because I'm letting go of relative reality, they scare me and they make me less incentivized to tune into awareness, right? So then I try to avoid them also. I try to avoid like superlatives and grandiose words sometimes. And sometimes it's cool to use them too. But I think, creating this, like even the word enlightenment, it sounds so grandiose. It's like, okay, the Buddha was like this dude. At first he was like rich and famous, and then he was like a homeless person who starved, and then he became enlightened, right? It's almost like he turned from a human to a god. And there we go again with the grandiose words. But I mean, to my understanding, what he did is he realized that his former self as a prince who was rich and famous, and then his newer self as this beggar on the street, or not beggar, but like starving homeless person, have the same ground of being, ground of existing, which is the awareness of it all, right? And so it was actually, like from a relative perspective, it looks like a huge shift, but it's actually a very small shift, because he just realized what was already the case the whole time, right? And and then we make this whole story out of it, like Buddha, he got rid of all his possessions, and he went to the woods, and he starved, and then people came, right? And then the people were still normal, and he was already a Buddha or a God, right? Same with Jesus. We make like such a huge, we perceive like such a huge distance to him, right? But in actuality, he was still a guy. He still went to the toilet, or the equivalent of a toilet that they had back then. He took walks. He ate. Maybe he puked sometimes. Maybe he had like sexual intercourse. He had a beard. Sometimes maybe he shaved his beard. Like, he's a guy, But he was like aware of awareness, and that was very inspiring for people, from my perspective, right? I mean, you could say there's a bigger mission behind it even, but like, what's the bigger mission than being outside of space and time and being aware of it, right? And I can already feel like if I would tell that to a Christian or whatever, like they would say this is blasphemy. You can't talk about Jesus that way. Yeah, right. But I mean, what? Right. So there's like the mind makes up all these barriers and layers, and it's the things like being aware of awareness or enlightenment is such a big deal, and it's right. And it is like the problem is it kind of is, right? But it also kind of isn't, because it was already there all the time, the whole time. Like even the most person who has the most thoughts per second. It's only possible because he's aware of all his thoughts, right? And right, so it's not. On the other hand, it's like not special at all. And so coming back to being excited, I think all excitement is about being aware of the I am. And we just try to look for it in different places, right? And I think when we can kind of tune into the I am just a little bit more, just 0.1% more, that thing we are excited about, right? So let's say I'm excited about having a good day in my business, right? So we sell more stuff a certain day than like the 30 days before, right? So it's a kind of a great day, right? So it's exciting. It's like, it feels like abundance, right? But what am I really excited about? I mean, I can't take that money with me. I can't take the acknowledgement of that success, if even somebody acknowledges it with me. And the next day comes and it's a new day to have a good business day, and we can also have a bad business day the next day, right? So what really excites me about it, I think the excitement about a good business day is the permission slip to being aware of awareness more, a little bit more, right? And so it's almost like I'm rewarding myself for being more aware by manifesting a good business day. I feel like sometimes it also works the other way around. Like when I'm aware of awareness more, the next day I have a good business day. But that's just, maybe it's coincidence, but I think we're all secretly seeking enlightenment through different venues, through different pathways that feel accessible to us, right? So it's almost like the higher self is scanning life where we have holes in our ego matrix, and then we get excited about what is there, right? That is my idea. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, how can we be like, is any excitement for anything other than the I am a true excitement? Is it like a everlasting absolute excitement, right? Like, can you be absolutely, like, forever be excited about a new car, right? Is it really like the car, or is it more like, oh my god, this car reminds me that I'm aware of it, that I'm aware of myself, and that expansion of the awareness of awareness is what stays with me. That's actually kind of forever. Whereas the car, after a certain amount of time, it's not a new car anymore. So it doesn't necessarily, there are exceptions to that, but most of the time it doesn't serve as such a permission slip to feel excited anymore, or have this feeling of new and fresh and yes, life is good, I have this new car, right? So the car is almost like a symbol for what is truer, bigger, more infinite, more timeless, more spaceless, more real, more closer to the infinite creator, right? So being aware of the situation of me getting the new car, sitting in it for the first time, experiencing the new car smell, loving the color of it, or the things I love about the car for the first time, or for the first couple times. The awareness of all of that is exciting. It expands my awareness of awareness. It's a permission slip to step into more awareness of beingness. Like, I feel like the car is being, the whole situation of me being in the car is a being. It's like there's a groundedness of beingness be underneath that, and that is the actual goal. That is where I'm really looking forward to, in a sense, right? Because even if, let's say, self-actualization, right? So I become my best version. I become like the guy with a lot of confidence, health, living his calling, right? That is not a graspable thing. It doesn't stay forever, and it's also doesn't look the same way forever, right? So what is it really? It's like a permission slip to be more alive, more in the moment, more like aware of beingness, right? I radiate the awareness of beingness more by living my calling. It's not necessarily about what I'm actually doing, right? What I'm actually doing by living my calling is I better society. I make life on earth and the relative world and the matrix a little bit better, which is great. But it's not everlasting, right? In 100 years, nobody won't remember what you did unless you're like Mahatma Gandhi. Then people will remember it for 1,000 years, and then they will still forget, right? So it's not, or Jesus, maybe 5,000 years. Okay, sure, but once humanity is gone, nobody will even know about Jesus, probably, mostly, right? Unless like time travelers or whatever. But it's like, I think even like living your calling, living your best life, being the bravest you can be and stuff, right? It's kind of like relative to being aware of awareness, right? I think being aware of awareness, first of all, comes with the territory of living your calling, and secondly, is kind of the bigger thing in that scenario, right? So that's why I really like enlightenment. I really like being aware of awareness. I really like using these videos as a permission slip to tune into that. I really like Bentino's new book. I think it's called Me, a story about me or something. Once it's out, because it will be free online, right? So once it's out, I will put the link to it. And so I think that it's just great to practice the 2 to 5 seconds of Bentino, tune into awareness of awareness, doing awareness meditations, doing whatever, vipassana stuff, Eckhart Tolle, whatever, Rupert Spira, all these people. I think it's good to tune into it and make it as easy and accessible to myself as possible, like not using grandiose words as much as I can and not making a big deal out of it, but also not being too lazy about it, right? So that's why the 2 to 5 seconds of Bentino are so great, because it's just minimum of 2 seconds. 2 seconds is very quick. It's like so that's already over, right? So just do that once a couple times a day. So it adds up to not even half a minute a day, right? So that's pretty cool. So I think that's why this is this basic practice. So I feel like this video is kind of a little bit of a rambling, but I think I hit certain things that help or can be a permission slip to tune into awareness more. And I really enjoy this series, and see you in the next one.